Hi. I think it's abundantly clear that Joe Biden's campaign is coming to an end. He won't be able to continue. Usually, summer is a slow time, even in presidential election campaign years, because most people are not paying attention. This is just the reality of American politics. And even public opinion polls during the summer are not 100% reliable and revelatory. Once you get past the Labor Day, this is when the polls become more accurate. So there are a lot of examples when over the summer the race may seem close and then it just falls apart for one candidate and he is swept aside in a landslide. And so we saw that with Reagan and Carter in 1980. In the summer, the polls were close. When we got to November of 1980, it was not even a real contest. Ronald Reagan just decimated Jimmy Carter. Then in 1988, over the summer, it was very close between George Herbert Walker Bush and Michael Dukakis. In November of that year, it was not even close, and George Herbert Walker Bush won in a landslide. So my point is, usually summers are uneventful, but obviously this summer is different because for the first time in American history, we have proof, we have evidence, demonstration, stark demonstration at that one of the two major candidates has dementia. I'm certain that he was diagnosed internally by the White House medical unit years ago, probably at least 5 years ago, with dementia, and that his doctors, his immediate family, and his closest political circle knew going into the 2020 election that Joe Biden had dementia. And it's most likely Alzheimer's. First of all, Alzheimer's is statistically the most common form of dementia, accounting for about 70% of all cases. But also, you have no tremors. So it's probably not Parkinson's, probably not dementia with Lewy bodies. It almost certainly is Alzheimer's. He won't be able to finish. He'll step aside. Democrats will nominate Kamala Harris. I don't know how contested the convention will be because partly it depends on what Joe Biden does. He has to release the delegates, which he will do, I'm certain. And I think that it's days rather than weeks before he takes that step. The question is, will he merely suspend his campaign, or will he also step aside as president and let Kamala Harris succeed him? Right now, I think that he will try to remain president for as long as he can. And it's just the torch of the candidacy that will be passed to Harris. She will inherit his campaign money, something that other delegates or other potentials, I should say, would not be able to do. Also, Democrats won't be able to push Kamala Harris aside because the optics would be terrible for them. She's the first female vice president. She's the first African American vice president. And to just push her aside would do too much damage to Democratic constituents. They would lose too many Democratic voters. And also, pushing her aside would be bad optics because it would reinforce the perception of some independents and democratically, especially among democratically leaning independents who are persuadable, who would likely vote for her. It may reinforce the perception that the entire Biden-Harris presidency was kind of a sham because he's been demented and she's been not particularly outstanding as far as competence is concerned. And that's why I think choosing Harris as the loyal soldier for Joe Biden for 4 years is the natural step to take. So I'm 90% certain she will be the Democratic candidate for president this November. And people should not underestimate her. It is true that she had no traction among Democratic voters during the 2019-2020 campaign. And this, while is revelatory of her apparent inability to get grassroots Democrats excited in the presence of other candidates, strong competitors, we should not consider it to be a foregone conclusion that she will lose to Donald Trump, because Joe Biden had a very similar trajectory. Many people forget that Biden actually ran for president in 1988 and then again in 2008, and also really got no traction. In that famous 2008 Democratic primary in which Obama defeated Clinton, there were other candidates like John Edwards of North Carolina and Joe Biden. It's just Joe Biden dropped out very early on because nobody supported him. And nevertheless, Biden was able to do what Hillary Clinton wasn't able to do. In 2020, while already affected by dementia, Joe Biden defeated Donald Trump. Because I believe, fraud or no fraud, Biden really won that election, that enough suburban women have switched between 2016 and 2020 and voted Democrat instead of Republican. And so Biden won that election. That's why I'm saying, don't write off Kamala Harris. Having said that, Donald Trump does have an advantage. So I think that chances are good, if Trump does not go to prison, if he's not sentenced to prison, and who knows what's going to happen, because the Supreme Court stated that president only has very limited immunity from criminal prosecution, and that immunity applies to his official acts. Accounting irregularities, paying hush money, that's not official acts. And so he might be sentenced to prison, although there have been cases of politicians being elected to prison, not to prison, to office from prison, as was the case with a Democratic Republican Representative Matthew Lyon, who was sentenced to prison for seditious speech against President John Adams and the Federalist Congress. So this was a long time ago, about 220 years ago. But he was elected to Congress from prison, and Trump might be elected to presidency from prison as well. Nobody knows. Thank you.